In this video, we'll be talking about the ATARI 800 XL, my newest machine, MIDI, the Dream 2695 synth chip, FujiNet to some extent. This is a FujiNet Professional. The JIL SAMR, which is a Dream 2695 integrated circuit inside of an SIO connector. And also general MIDI versus the original MIDI specification. I'll take you for a quick tour of some of the synths in my music room, and then we'll be coming back here and talking about a piece of software developed in 1998 in Poland, which is called MIDIPLAY, MIDIPLAY. It's a MIDI player that will take any MIDI file and play it through a MIDI interface attached to an Atari box. But it's an interesting, what we're here to talk about today is kind of an interesting convergence of technologies, considering the great span of time from the early 80s when this machine was released, following the late 70s when the original Atari 800 was released. The SIO protocol, the old, I guess, original operating system that's on ROM in here, this brand new device, this brand new plug-in device. When I say plug-in, I mean physical plug-in to the SIO port, and some software that's old and MIDI files that are old and new. It's just a kind of ridiculous scenario where everything just happens to work, and it's really an impressive array of technologies that we'll be covering here. This video will be particularly interesting, I believe, to anybody interested in the newest Phoenix platform, which is the F256K2 platform, which, based on my understanding, I know the specs are still being finalized, but based on my understanding that will have an onboard Dream chip, which is the chip in this JIL SAMR device, the transparent SIO connect here. So with that said, I'll turn on my machine, and people that are, let me do it again. Turn this off, turn this on. People that are new to Atari, as I was as recent as a month ago, will see the ready prompt. I know that this is the basic interpreter, 10 print and all that nonsense. I'm not going to bother you with it, but that's how most of the machines come up. However, when you have a FujiNet installed, you get something quite a bit different, and we'll jump into it when I come back in here after the walkthrough of music room. But this is FujiNet coming up on the same machine with no changes to anything inside. There's no ROM, there's no cabling. You just simply plug this thing in over SIO, and you've got access to a bunch of devices on the net, meaning the internet, local in your home if you have a local server, and also an SD card, which is built into this particular model and most of them. So we'll talk more in just a bit. Let's jump into the music room, and we'll come back here for most of what we're here to talk about. Okay, you're looking at DOS. So this is one of the many versions of DOS that exists in the Atari 8-bit landscape. This is something called MyDOS, and I believe, I'm not quite the expert here, but I believe it's a derivative of the original Atari DOS, which went up as high as I think like 2.5. So this is a slightly enhanced version of DOS, and DOS varies from what you know about a Commodore DOS, maybe built into the kernel, DOS on an Apple II, DOS on other systems, certainly DOS on an IBM PC. But you got to keep in mind that this is the early 80s when Atari designed a system, had a drive, I believe, available right at the get-go, and it has made certain steps in evolution along the way. Ultimately, this came down to this piece of software, and I'm not sure. It says it's copyright 1989, which is pretty far along, but I'm pretty sure it's in the public domain now. But this is something that's very easy to use. You press 1 through 8 to see a directory. I'm going to press 1, and you'll see the directory of my DOS disk, which has nothing on it except DOS itself, 618 free sectors. I'm going to I'll press enter to get the menu back. I'll press 2 to see the attached SD disk, which contains some MIDI tunes. Those are the .mid files, and the something called MIDI play .xex. There's not enough room in the display to put the dot, but that's the way that Atari displays it, at least in this version of DOS. I should mention that I booted my system. I didn't show it to you, but I booted it. I booted DOS from across FujiNet. So let me introduce you to FujiNet, at least from this device. There's tons and tons of videos online. ATARI was, I believe, the premier platform for FujiNet. Tom Cherry Holmes developed it with a host of folks contributing. This is the FujiNet Professional. This is created in Poland by a guy named Lotharek, who has a company that does SMD fabrication. This is a metal case device. It's got 2 SIO ports on the back, an external antenna. I guess this is for updating this USB-C. Power switch, light of the ATARI logo, and a couple of status lights, some buttons, and an SD slot. So mounted on my machine at the moment is disk 1, which contains DOS, and I booted that over FujiNet, and disk 2, which contains an SD share, which you're looking at now. Sorry, SD drive you're looking at now. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to load this program MIDI play, and we'll jump right to it. I'm going to do L for load. I'm going to type MIDI. Whoops, forgot something. I need to specify the drive, the drive slot that this disk is in, this virtual disk. So I'm going to do a D2, which is disk 2, or slot 2 from a Fuji perspective, MIDI play .xex, and press enter. And you hear that familiar beep again. MIDI Play is a piece of software developed in Poland, 1998. It was published, and you can see the person who wrote it. I cannot pronounce the name. I apologize. This is version 1.3. I think there's a 1.2 out there as well. This is clearly the newest version. It's a pretty basic interface. I had a lot of problems with it when I first got my hands on it for a number of reasons, mostly my problem, but it is very rather quirky. And there's one other video I stumbled across on YouTube where somebody kind of introduced the software and had a number of complaints about the way it worked. I'll try not to go deep into those issues, but you'll see them as I kind of stumble along here to give you this demo. This is not a tracker, it's a MIDI player. It can load a .mid file that was created from another system. And you know, it requires a MIDI device, but there's no way to configure the device. It just assumes you have a MIDI compatible device on the SIO chain, and I happen to have that right here. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to press enter just to kind of get past the welcome screen. Two things to point out on this screen. One is that in the upper right corner, I've got 49920 bytes free of RAM. So it shows my total RAM and the RAM free. It also says it recommends memory 128 KB or more. So that's interesting and important, as you'll see. I believe among some of the interface quirks, there's a major bug in the way that memory is leveraged and reported. And in fact, the so-called title song that Lotharek demonstrates in his YouTube video, which I will link below, does not work on my system. And I believe it's because I don't have enough memory. I only have 64K in this machine. He's got I think he has like the 1 meg upgrade in his, he has a newer machine, maybe the, not the 130. He might have 130, but with extra memory. I've got, and I'll put in shortly, an extra 300K or so. So that should fix my problem, but we'll find out. So without further ado, I'm going to press enter to get past this. I'll take the defaults. I'm going to do a directory. Now you'll notice under file, it says star.star. So you can think of it in this mode as a mask. So I'm going to get a directory of my disk, and it'll show me what's on that disk. It's very similar to what you saw previously on the DOS directory when I pressed the number 2, except it's in a single column here. Now, I said mask, but the fact is that's also where the spot where you would identify what file you want to load. So I'm going to press F for file. I'm going to type over the star.star. I'm going to type Baron, is it? Yep, Baron, B-A-R-O-N. Not actually the name of the song, but I renamed it to Baron because that's how I think of it. I'm going to press enter and you'll hear it load. Now, enter doesn't load it. Enter just identifies the name, says this is what I want to use going forward. I'll press L to load. You hear the beeping. And you'll notice on the right, the memory free will be reduced by some amount, and now it's down, 4.5 or 5K, 5.5K. So it's now loaded, and I do know that file is 5K in length. This file is a song, a transcription of a song, which is actually named Broon's Bane, B-R-O-O-N-S. It's by a Canadian rock band, Rush. Some of you may have heard of it. And this was never recorded for a studio album, but it was played live on the Exit Stage Left tour, and it preceded a song called Trees. It's a single part guitar piece. It sounds classical. I'll press play and just speak over this as it plays. It's a single part guitar piece that Alex Lifeson plays. It's very nice. Now, of course, you're not listening to a guitar. Let me shut up for a second so you can listen to it. So it's piano. And that's because there's an issue with the software where, for some reason, most of the generic, I'll call them, or maybe older MIDI tracks are only played using a static instrument. And I haven't quite gotten to the bottom of it yet. But when I play a track that's one of the Monkey Island soundtracks from the video game, you'll see the difference. It's rather striking. Let me grab my headphones just so I can listen to what you're listening to. Okay. This is a 12/8 time piece. It's in, I believe, what key is it in? I think it's in D minor. The bottom two notes sound almost dissonant, and that's because of it's on a piano. It's really strange, and I'll actually play for you what it looks like on a Mac and what instruments it should be. But you'll see there, I'll superimpose it here, that it should have a Steinway piano for kind of the upper four notes. It should have something called Epic Cloud Formation, which is a synth track, actually two tracks of that. It should have a fingerstyle bass and should have a classical guitar. But within this player, it only plays what it thinks are the correct number of channels, 6, but somehow it's playing him all as piano. It does sound nice, but it's incorrect. And now it's over. So with that out of the way, I'm now going to load up something that sounds an awful lot better. But I wanted to mention it because if you try this at home, you may find some level of frustration as you stumble across tons of MID files, especially MID files that originated in Poland. I believe that in Poland, there was a huge community of folks across, probably a good decade that stockpiled and organized a whole lot of MIDI files as if they were SID tracks, right, from the Commodore machines that had SID chips, SID players and whatnot. So let me quickly get back. I'm going to reset the machine, and I'll map a different SD card, and then we'll play something that sounds an awful lot like what Lothrak has played on his demo of this product. And this product again is the Jill Sammer, J-I-L. And J-I-L, if you put the letters in caps and you look at them, he explains it, and I wasn't quite following the first couple of times I saw the video. What he does is he draws the J, the I, and the L like that. And what it is the Atari symbol, J-I-L. And Sammer is based on it's called the SAM chip. It's the SAM 2695, the Dream SAM 2695 is the name of the chip. And of course I have the link below to the spec sheet. I'm going to map a drive. This is the FujiNet interface. I'll just show you briefly. At the top I have a host list. The first host here is my SD card, which again is present here on the FujiNet device. The rest of them are defined, I guess you can call them a TNFS shares on the internet. And those are the URLs to get to them. So I'm going to quickly navigate down, and I just actually want to show you what this looks like, the interface. You move up and down, you press tab key to get down to the drive slots where you can eject a drive. And then you choose a folder, like I'll choose this FujiNet share, which is FujiNet Atari 8bit.net. From here I'll go into, say, games. From here I'll go into a decade or so of games. Let's choose this one. This is actually 20 years. And from here I can go into a whole series of publishers. And I don't know, I'll choose Atari. And this folder contains so many games that you can clearly see why Atari was so successful, at least early on. And so there's essentially screen after screen of very familiar titles. I'm going to press the greater than sign here to get to the next page. And I'll choose something to bring in. Let's see, the old standby, I'll bring in Space Invaders. So let me scroll down to this version. Notice this is the Atari 5200 version, which will not play in an Atari 800 XL. I'll press enter here to kind of I'm not naming it, but I identified that as the disk, the logical disk that I'm going to mount by placing it into a slot on my machine. Mount to drive slot. I'm going to press enter here. This is my boot drive, and it's asking me, do I want to read only or read write? I'm going to press enter to make it read only, and I'll press escape to get back to the kind of the main menu here, and you'll see now that slot 1 is Space Invaders.xex. I'm going to reset my machine now, and you'll see how quickly this program loads. Now, granted, Space Invaders is a tiny title, and this is not the potato Space Invaders you may have played as a kid, adult, or an adult. But I'm going to press, I guess I can press the start button just to run it. I don't have a joystick connected. And you hear some of those, lovely sounds. And one of the other thing you'll notice is that these graphics are a lot like slightly evolved VCS or 2600 graphics. But certainly there are, a whole lot of games for this platform that are much closer to, if not exactly like the arcade. So that's kind of a quick demonstration of how easy it is to map a drive, a disk image, to a share and reboot it as if you have the disk locally. I'm now going to reset my machine again. I'm going to switch back to the DOS image so I can get further on and mount the song I really want to get to. So let's take a minute to initialize. I'm going to go down to ATARI, same FujiNet site. I'm going to say applications. I'm going to say DOS. I'm going to go down to my favorite DOS, my DOS. I'm going to put that in this slot. Let me get a read only. And now I'm going to change my SD drive also to a folder that has much more interesting music. I'm going to go into the next screen here. I'm going to take this file. I'm going to put that into my second drive, read only, done. I'm going to reboot. All right, so this will come up now. Now I mentioned that Lothrak in his demo launches a song called Title, and that's the title of the famous Monkey Island series. Monkey Island is a suite of, not a suite, but it's a series of games published, I guess, in 1990, a sequel in 1991. There was then a 6-year hiatus, 97, another, I forget the name of them all. The one came out in the year 2000, et cetera, et cetera. It was very successful. I was never a PC gamer. Let me load my software while I'm talking here. I'm going to load from disk to MIDI play, like before. .xex. Okay. Somehow these MIDI files probably existed just on the disk themselves, whether they were hidden files or not, I'm not sure. But somebody got their hands on all the files, and they're extremely well produced. I'm going to set up a share somewhere. I'll definitely put them into the Phoenix Marketplace website, so anybody with any platform can download the MIDI files and play them on their own devices, whether they have GarageBand or Apple Logic or something else. Probably works just well in any of the what do they call those, machine or any of those other DAWs, modern DAW. So I'm going to press enter to get this thing to initialize. But I was talking about the Monkey Island tunes. Now, I told you I couldn't load it in the system, but I will install the memory and get that to work, I believe. I'm going to do a file, rather directory with this mask. I'm going to load up MK MK stands for, I think, Monkey Island. And dive, I don't know if I have to do it with the dive bar or not sure. It's 141 sectors. I'm going to say file, MKDIVE, and L for load. Okay, now keep your eye on the amount of free RAM. I think this one's 15K, but I'm not sure. Incidentally, when I found out that there was a bug or an issue with the software, 16 or 17K it looks like, when I found there's a bug or issue with the software, I kind of went back to the drawing board and tried files of different sizes. I tried like a 10K file, 12K, 14K, 16, until I ran out of gas, and it happened rather quickly. So I think there's a problem with the way that the software sees memory and then uses it. Perhaps it allocates some memory from its own internal, that large block of 49K for other purposes, and it doesn't take that out of the total. And perhaps the largest file you can read into this system on a 64K machine is 16 or 17K. But it's loaded now, And I'll now, without further delay, I'll press play, and you'll hear what this thing really sounds like. When I say this thing, to reiterate, this is being played across the XIO bus into this Jill Sammer product here. And one thing you'll notice, and Lothar demonstrates this 3.5 millimeter jack on the end here is for external audio in stereo, okay? If you don't have something plugged in there, it plays the audio back through the bus. This is a crazy thing. It's just the genius of it. Plays that audio back through the bus into the Atari chip and comes out the normal Atari output as a monophonic signal, mixed. The left and right are mixed. So let me press play. So you can see the list of tracks. There's 11 tracks in this sequence. There's another issue where it lists somehow each of the tracks twice. Bottle blow, muted guitar, clean guitar, basses once for some reason. There's two tracks of drums, etc. Let me count this real quick. There's 17 there. This is the part where you get scared, I think. Anyway, you get the idea. So the acoustics and quality of the instruments in here are just amazing. Better than probably anything I have in my studio. I would argue that the modular synth can make just monstrous sounds that this cannot do. But as far as built-in instruments and the general MIDI specification is concerned, this blows away the Roland device I showed you earlier, which again is probably maybe from the mid-2000s. But it's just a wonderful thing. I mean, this cost probably $39 US, and of course the cost will vary based on exchange rate with Poland. It may cost me another $10 or $15 to ship it. He's got a lot of great products for sale, so this of course is not a paid endorsement or even an endorsement. He doesn't know I'm making this video, but he's got tons of stuff, and I bought this and I went back later and saw that, and I went back later and bought something else. I didn't really plan ahead. So that's about it for the demo. I want to give you just two other pieces of information here. One is that there's a woman who created a video on YouTube where she demonstrates taking the same chip and mounting it on a DIY board for some synth DIY action. And she was challenged to get this thing onto some type of a board, like a, it's not a QFP package, but it kind of, it's whatever the surface mount version of that is. And she couldn't find one with like a 4-pitch for some reason. She had to build one. So that was amusing, but you should have a watch of that. There's a second video which is wonderful, which is produced by a guy named, I think it's Han Bras, and I believe he's from the Netherlands. And he has a YouTube channel where he does quite a bit with video games. He loves video games, and he loves the Monkey Island series, and he knows just about everything about the series. And it turns out he showed up in some town in Netherlands, and he took some of the sheet music, and he found a carillonneur, which is a person that plays a carillon, which is basically a bell tower arrangement where they have essentially a piano keyboard with levers. And he found a guy who was willing to play this song live on this, in this fair-sized clock tower. So it's a very interesting video. It's about only 7 minutes long. So have a quick look at that. Takeaways for me is I'm going to post all of the Monkey Island songs, and I think there are, it's like 1.3 megs worth of them. It's just tons of them. On my Phoenix marketplace, I'm going to, of course, include a bunch of links below for other materials, including the spec sheet to this. So have a look for that as well. And I'm going to follow up this video hopefully later in the summer with kind of my next steps in what I consider yet another project that I'm going to start and hopefully make progress on. I like to give myself 3 months on these things, or 6 months, but I would like to take this piece of software, this MIDI play, and rip it to pieces and put it into an assembler, reassemble it with some of the bug fixes in place. And I'd very much like to give the ability to take a track like Brune's Bane I just showed you, and numerous other, I guess, assumed general MIDI files, and give the user the ability to change the instrument. Right? There's 128 instruments in general MIDI specification, in addition to the fact that one of the instruments on a specific channel or percussion is percussion, and it has, what did I demonstrate earlier, some 30-something different pieces of percussion. So I'd like to make this software better for people that like to use it, and there's a ton of like DIY interfaces out there, and it'd be great to be able to use it with that as well. Not sure what's entailed in that, but at a minimum, I'm going to hack this software apart, fix some of the bugs, improve the interface slightly, and make it so you can change the voices as something's playing to get better use out of this product if you have it, or something else like it. So that's about it for today. I'm trying to think if there's anything I missed that I really wanted to cover. Let's have a quick look around at my notes here that are on the wall behind the camera. No, I think that might have been, oh yeah, I just wanted to say that if you look at the length of these files, it's a combination of complexity of the files. There's embedded text. There's a provision in general MIDI to have lyrics in there, like karaoke style lyrics, which this software does do out of the box. It'll be demonstrated on the person I mentioned. I'll include that link as well. Person I mentioned that kind of showed the software for me. It was the first demonstration I saw of it after Lotharic had kind of the perfect demonstration. The software is certainly imperfect, and those pitfalls are all exposed in this video. But I did some quick math, and I took a 120 beat per minute piece of music, and did some calculations, and you're getting about, I think, like 3 minutes for a song that's reasonable size, maybe 10 or 12K. So you could have quite a complex piece in here, and that was, I think, an 11-track piece. One final thing I wanted to say is that Tom Cherryholmes had a ATARI classroom at VCF East 2024, and that was my first experience with hands-on to the 800. Andy Diller and some others in that room were very helpful to me and giving me access to the machine and teaching me on the side what I needed to know. Because again, I always wanted an Atari 800, never had the money as a kid, and I went in completely the other direction with Commodore systems, as I explained. If you saw my studio tour, you'll know what I'm talking about. But I asked Tom, how does this thing plug in? How does FujiNet, not this one specific, but any FujiNet device, plug into the Atari 800? Do you have to pop your system, take a ROM out, put a new ROM in? And he explained to me, no, the architects of the SIO bus did it in such a way that you can plug, you can extend or make extensible devices for the system. And he created a device called the N device. I may have mentioned that earlier in this video or not, but I believe, and I'll find out, how the MIDI device is accessed. I believe something similar happened in addressing this. But it's quite impressive that Atari had the forethought to allow not just a cassette player, a printer, a serial port, but other devices could plug into this architecture by booting off, by being bootable, of course, and instantiating a handler. And I say that the impressive thing about it is that it's also very fast. It's a very fast protocol. I can load a file on here across the internet from a FujiNet share in probably twice the speed that a Commodore 64 can load a file from a 1541 disk drive across an IEC connection in the native disk device. So Atari has had quite a lot going for it, and I really enjoy this platform. I'd like to thank everybody for whatever help they've been giving me. I didn't quite get to this, but maybe I'll depending on the total length of the video, I'll create a quick add-on so you can see if it worked or not for me. And I'm going to go on a limb here and say, well, it does work. I'll be able to play the full title, which is that 30K file. One other thing, the last thing, is that the 1.3 megs of Monkey Island music that I mentioned, there's some, I don't know, 60 or so files in there. The largest file is 64K, and the smallest one is, I think, maybe 2 or 3K. So it's quite a variety. I'll see if I can load the 64K into my machine after I add this memory. I should be able to. But that's all for now. Catch you next time.